Real-time strategy games once ruled PC gaming. From Age of Empires, StarCraft, to Command & Conquer, and of course, Dawn of War. These games defined an era, but over the years, the RTS genre has struggled, overshadowed by MOBAs, shooters, and the rise of live service games. But what if I told you Dawn of War 4 could change all of that? Today, we'll explore why the Warhammer franchise might just be the key to reviving RTS for a new generation. But first, it's important to see where real-time strategy is right now as a gaming genre. Real-time strategy games were once the kings of PC gaming. Think about it. StarCraft, Age of Empires, Command & Conquer, Warcraft 3, they weren't just popular, they were cultural events. Real-time strategy games defined the early days of esports, sold millions of copies, and shaped how gamers thought about competition. But in the 2010s, the genre started to fade from the spotlight, and in my opinion, there were three main reasons: accessibility, competition, and design stagnation. Real-time strategy games demand a lot from players: multitasking, memorization, micro and macro management. You're building a base, managing resources, commanding units, scouting the map, all at once. For veterans, that's the thrill, but for newcomers, it can feel rather overwhelming. Compare that to something like Call of Duty or Fortnite, where you can jump in and have fun straight away. Real-time strategy games can often ask for homework before it lets you have fun. Then came MOBAs like League of Legends and Dota 2. They took the tactical team battles of RTS, stripped away the base building, and gave players direct control over a single unit. Easier to learn, faster to play, and way more accessible for esports. MOBAs exploded, and RTS got left behind. Let's be honest, many RTS titles stopped innovating. Too often, it was just another version of the same formula: build a base, gather resources, pump out units, crush the enemy. Without major innovation, players drifted towards fresher experiences. Even long-running franchises like Command & Conquer eventually fizzled out. So the genre went quiet, and there have been many failed projects along the way. But that doesn't necessarily mean it's dead. RTS still has passionate communities, from StarCraft 2 diehards to Age of Empires 2 and Age of Empires 4 fans. And with the right game, at the right time, RTS could make a comeback. And maybe, just maybe, that's where Dawn of War could come in. The Dawn of War series has always stood out because it dared to be different. Where many RTS games stuck with the same formula, Dawn of War constantly redefined what an RTS could be. To understand Dawn of War, it's important to start looking from where it all began. When Dawn of War launched in 2004, it wasn't just another RTS. It was a revolution for the genre. While other games followed a very similar formula, Dawn of War flipped that on its head. The game introduced map control as your economy. You captured and defended strategic points scattered across the battlefield, and those points generated requisition, the lifeblood of your army. The more ground you held, the stronger your war machine became. Suddenly, every skirmish mattered. RTS wasn't just about building a base, it was about owning the battlefield. And it wasn't just about mechanics either, it was about style. Dawn of War was unapologetically Warhammer. The animations were brutal. Space Marines didn't just fire rifles, they plunged chainswords into orcs, executed cultists, and tore through enemies with visceral finishes. The factions felt distinct. Space Marines were disciplined and powerful, Orcs were chaotic and swarming, Eldar relied on speed and psychic finesse, and Chaos Marines dripped with corruption and raw power. And of course, the game's art and audio nailed the grimdark 40,000 aesthetic. Bolters thundered, Orcs screamed with Cockney bravado, and the battlefields looked like living war zones.
This is a war! about Stern, boss? Can I kill him? Show you's eyes a good orc? No! Stern's mine! I want his head! What's so special about his head? That's where the skull is, stupid! And I'll look foolish with his foot on me pointy stick. Stupid me! I knew the answer to that!
Then came the expansions: Winter Assault, Dark Crusade, and Soulstorm. These weren't just add-ons, they were game changers. Winter Assault introduced the Imperial Guard, bringing massive armoured divisions and relentless artillery to the battlefield. Dark Crusade added a Risk-style campaign map and fan-favourite factions like the Necrons and Tau. It became one of the most beloved RTS expansions of all time. And Soulstorm expanded the roster further with Sisters of Battle and Dark Eldar, pushing the total playable factions into the double digits. By the end, Dawn of War 1 had grown into an RTS sandbox where every faction felt unique, every battle felt cinematic, and the sheer variety kept players hooked for years. This was the magic of Dawn of War 1. It wasn't just about strategy, it was about immersion. It made you feel like you were commanding the endless war of the 41st millennium. And for many fans, no real-time strategy game since has quite matched that blend of raw strategy, faction variety, and Warhammer authenticity. Having said all of this, Dawn of War 1 wasn't just a single-player experience. It thrived in multiplayer. Online battles pushed players to master not only their faction, but also the art of map control and momentum. Matches were fast-paced and brutal. Dawn of War forced you to engage early, capture points, defend choke points, harass your opponent's economy. It was about constant pressure. And because the factions were so distinct, multiplayer had incredible variety. Playing Orcs felt completely different from commanding the Eldar. Chaos demanded aggression, while Imperial Guard rewarded endurance. This asymmetry kept the meta alive for years, and balance patches from Relic ensured the competitive scene stayed sharp. But what really gave Dawn of War 1 its long lifespan was the modding community. Fans created massive overhauls like Ultimate Apocalypse, which cranked the scale to insane levels: Titans, super heavy tanks, and galaxy-ending weapons, all clashing on the battlefield. Others built lore-accurate balance mods, custom factions, and even entirely new campaigns. For many years, these mods kept the game alive long after official support ended. Even today, you can find people playing the modded Dawn of War online, nearly 2 decades later. That's not just a good RTS, that's a legacy. And it proves something crucial: RTS lives and dies by its community. If you give players the tools, they'll keep your game alive for decades. It's why Dawn of War 1 is remembered as a classic, not just because of what Relic built, but because of what the community built on top of it. But there was soon a very big surprise for Dawn of War fans. In 2009, Relic shocked fans with Dawn of War 2. Gone were the sprawling bases and massive armies. Instead, the game zoomed in, focusing on squad-based tactics and cover mechanics. At first, this was divisive. Some fans missed the classic base building, but others loved the fresh and tactical focus. What really stood out was the campaign. You didn't just build an army, you led a squad of Space Marines across missions, gaining experience, loot, and abilities. It felt like a mix of RTS and RPG. Every squad was unique: Assault Marines with jetpacks, Devastators with heavy bolters, and Scouts with infiltration. You could equip new war gear between missions, tailoring your squads to your playstyle. And choices mattered. Fail to defend a planet, and it could fall permanently to the Tyranids. This wasn't just strategy, it was storytelling through gameplay. Players felt attached to their squads like never before. But multiplayer was very different. Players fought over victory points, where holding territory drained your opponent's score. It was faster, more intense, and focused on positioning. Cover, suppression, and flanking were the keys to victory. Some RTS veterans loved the fresh pace. others missed the large-scale battles. But it carved out a dedicated competitive community, complete with expansions like Chaos Rising and Retribution, which added new factions and deepened the multiplayer meta. Where Dawn of War 2 really pushed the boat of adaptation was that it gave us one of the most addictive RTS game modes ever made, The Last Stand, a 3-player survival arena that was so good some people played it more than the base game. It stripped RTS down to its most exciting core, action, teamwork, and progression. Instead of managing bases or armies, you controlled just one hero unit and teamed up with 2 other players to survive wave after wave of enemies. It worked because it was accessible, anyone could jump in, even if they weren't hardcore RTS fans. It was addictive, the leveling system and war gear unlocks kept you chasing new builds, and it was replayable. Every hero felt unique, and team combos created endless strategies. For many, The Last Stand became the reason to keep Dawn of War 2 installed. It showed that RTS games could indeed adapt to more modern tastes. Fast sessions, progression systems, and cooperative fun, without losing their tactical soul. It's another example of how the Dawn of War franchise kept things fresh and innovative for the player base. And you'll see exactly how Dawn of War 4 will learn from all of this later on in the video. And while not as heavily modded as the first game, Dawn of War 2 still built a loyal community. Balanced mods and custom maps kept multiplayer alive for years, and to this day, fans still play Retribution online. For many, Dawn of War 2 wasn't just an RTS, it was a tactical RPG in disguise, and it showed that the genre could evolve in a bold new direction. The next direction for the Dawn of War franchise, however, was a lot less well received. In 2017, Relic tried to merge both worlds with Dawn of War 3. The idea was ambitious. Combine the large armies and base building of Dawn of War 1 with the hero-focused tactics of Dawn of War 2. On paper, it sounded like the best of both worlds. In practice, it pleased almost no one. The gameplay introduced giant flashy super units like Imperial Knights and Orc Stompers, epic to look at, but divisive in gameplay. It leaned heavily into MOBA-inspired mechanics like powerful hero abilities and simplified resource systems. The result was a game that felt caught between genres, not deep enough for the classic RTS fan, not intimate enough for the Dawn of War 2 fans, and too complex for casual players. Even the art style shifted to a more cartoony look, clashing with the grimdark tone that Warhammer fans loved and have come to expect. Fans and critics were divided. Some praised the scale and spectacle, but many felt the soul of Dawn of War was missing. Player numbers dropped quickly, and just 1 year after release, Relic announced it would no longer support the game, a heartbreaking end to one of RTS's boldest series. Unlike its predecessors, Dawn of War 3 never developed a strong modding or multiplayer community. Without support, it faded almost as quickly as it arrived. For many fans, it was a misstep, but also a lesson. It showed that chasing trends just doesn't always work. RTS fans want innovation, yes, but they also want authenticity, depth, and respect for the universe they love. And that's the story of Dawn of War so far. A series that constantly reinvented itself, the brutal spectacle of the first game, the tactical intimacy of the second, and the ambitious but flawed hybrid of the third. Love it or hate it, Dawn of War never played it safe, and that's why the idea of Dawn of War 4 is exciting fans so very much. Because if this series has proven anything, it's that it isn't afraid to take risks. And maybe that's exactly what the real-time strategy genre needs right now. Now, we are closing into what I believe is the juiciest part of this video, because we're going to be taking a look at Dawn of War 4, but before we do that, we really must talk about Dawn of War the Definitive Edition. Relic's classic 2004 real-time strategy game has been fully remastered, bringing modern performance, quality of life updates, and sharper visuals to one of the most beloved RTS games ever made. But why does this matter for Dawn of War 4? Because it reminds the RTS community of what made the original formula so legendary. It's a reintroduction for veterans, and an entry point for new players who never experienced that golden age of base building, resource capturing, and massive battles. In many ways, the Definitive Edition is a test run. If it proves there's still a hungry audience for the classic RTS design, it builds confidence in Dawn of War 4's mission to modernize those same foundations. Think of it as laying down the groundwork, showing that this genre still has life, and that players are ready for a full-scale return. So when Dawn of War 4 launches, it won't be coming out of nowhere. It will be standing on the shoulders of a remastered classic, with a fanbase already primed and eager for the next step in RTS evolution. We must not underestimate the power that this has in terms of marketing and audience awareness of this upcoming real-time strategy game. For a new game to really break the boundaries into the gaming industry, especially in real-time strategy games, all the pieces of the puzzles must fit, and giving Dawn of War 4 the best possible launch is one of the biggest pieces. The Definitive Edition helps along that path. So, why could Dawn of War 4 be the spark that reignites real-time strategy games? The Warhammer 40k universe is bigger than ever. For years, it was a niche tabletop game, known mostly to hardcore fans. But today, Warhammer is everywhere. Space Marine 2 is an incredibly popular action game and has brought many eyes into the Warhammer universe. Darktide brought millions of players into the hive cities of the Imperium. Boltgun nailed retro shooter nostalgia and won over critics. And of course, Total War Warhammer has become one of Creative Assembly's most successful franchises ever. Even outside gaming, Warhammer is breaking through. Amazon is working on a Warhammer 40k TV series. The brand is bigger, louder, and more mainstream than it's ever been before. And that matters, because building a new RTS is risky. Look at how many new RTS IPs have launched and disappeared without making a dent. Even with good mechanics, if the world and story don't grab people, the game struggles. And that's why Dawn of War has such an advantage. It's not starting from zero. It's not trying to convince players to care about a brand new universe. It already has one of the richest, most established sci-fi settings ever created. Grim dark, iconic, and instantly recognizable. Not only is it not starting from zero, but it would also be riding the wave of Warhammer's mainstream explosion. It could hook longtime fans who grew up with the tabletop, while also reaching entirely new players who discovered Warhammer through video games or TV. That's the power of building on a strong franchise. And it's something that no amount of ex-developer pedigree can replace. Here's also a truth that most studios forget. The majority of real-time strategy game players don't spend hundreds of hours grinding multiplayer ladders. Some do, but certainly not the majority. The majority play the campaign, cooperative game modes, and custom game modes. Campaigns are where players learn the mechanics, fall in love with the factions, and connect with the story. In an IP as massive as Warhammer 40k, story isn't just background flavor, it's the hook. The developers of Dawn of War 4 haven't forgotten this truth, and so their advertised focus of 70+ cooperatively playable campaign missions across 4 different factions is a very welcome sight to see. A strong campaign does 2 things. It satisfies casual players who just want to live inside the Warhammer universe, and it trains future multiplayer competitors by teaching mechanics naturally through story missions. Without a great campaign, you risk losing the majority of your audience. But with one, you create lifelong fans who stay with the game for years, even if they never set foot in multiplayer. And one further detail to note is that without a great campaign, you're probably not going to have anyone interested to play multiplayer game modes anyway. The fact that campaigns can be played cooperatively is an absolutely amazing addition, as it allows people to play with their friends and even introduce their friends to RTS by playing with them and showing them the ropes in a safe and comfortable environment where they can experience the Warhammer universe and a storyline together. Now, one of the hidden gems of the Dawn of War series is the Last Stand game mode. Introduced in Dawn of War 2, it's a cooperative survival mode where a small squad of heroes face endless waves of enemies. Simple in concept, but insanely addictive to play, Dawn of War 4 is set to have the Last Stand game mode return to the Dawn of War series. For Dawn of War 4, the Last Stand could become a central feature, not just a side game mode. Similar to the cooperative aspect of the campaign, the Last Stand gives another game mode for Dawn of War 4 to become a next-gen and social RTS. In fact, the Last Stand game mode is so important as it provides accessibility for new players because not everyone wants to dive into competitive multiplayer. The game mode provides instant action and teamwork without the pressure of ladders or rankings. It offers a lot of replayability because every session is different. Enemy waves vary, bosses appear unpredictably, and environmental hazards can change on the battlefield. The fact that the game mode is also hero-centric means that your heroes can grow over time, gain new abilities, and can be customized with war gear. Players form a bond with their characters, increasing investment into the game mode, but also, because of the different style of game mode with heroes, it's going to be providing variety of the types of unit pieces that you control in this RTS. Age of Empires 2's Definitive Edition has co-op campaigns which have been wildly successful. Friends can tackle historic battles together, coordinate economies, and combine strategies. Replay numbers and stats show that co-op campaigns have significantly extended the game's longevity. StarCraft 2 has the cooperative game mode, where players take control of powerful commanders and face waves of AI. It's become a staple. It's not just a casual alternative, it's a major driver of engagement, keeping players coming back for weekly challenges and progression. The wild thing is that Dawn of War is going to be having something very similar to the Age of Empires 4 cooperative campaign, as well as StarCraft 2's cooperative game mode. So if this is not enough to get you convinced, well, the cinematic Warhammer 40k experience is going to be unreal. Sync kills aren't just gameplay, they are storytelling. Every brutal execution reinforces the grimdark tone of Warhammer 40k. Essentially, they are epic melee clashes, squad finishing moves, and cinematic slow motion executions. Very few RTS games actually have this, and I've heard that the number of different animations that will be there in Dawn of War 4 is absolutely huge. Players will be able to see firsthand the raw power of Space Marines and the savagery of orcs. It makes the battlefield feel like a living warzone, not just a grid of units. In Dawn of War 4, upgrading this system with modern graphics, physics, and animation technology could make battles feel like mini-movies unfolding in real time. Overall, the RTS genre has seen incredible highs and some very quiet years. But one franchise has always dared to innovate, to push boundaries, and to bring the grimdark 41st millennium to life: Dawn of War. With a strong campaign that immerses players in cinematic battles, cooperative game modes that let friends fight together, and modern technology to scale battles like never before, Dawn of War 4 has everything it needs to reignite the RTS genre. Or at least, I thought it did. I haven't actually seen anything written about the modding support for the game, and that is absolutely huge. If that's something that is implemented, then it feels like there's very little that could stop Dawn of War being hugely successful other than themselves. If they can produce a great game, it looks like they've got all the ingredients and the roadmap ahead to make it work. Millions of fans already know and love these factions, stories and battles. That existing audience, combined with the right design choices, could make Dawn of War 4 the RTS event that the genre has been waiting for a very long time. This isn't just a sequel, it could be a rebirth for the franchise, for RTS, and for players craving strategy that feels epic, tactical, and cinematic all at once. So I hope you enjoyed this walkthrough of the Dawn of War franchise and the upcoming Dawn of War 4 game. But to be honest, I don't really want things to end here. I'd really quite like to read your thoughts. I mentioned earlier in the video that most RTS games live and die by their community. And well, that's basically you guys. What did you make of the previous Dawn of War games? Which was your favourite? And how optimistic are you about Dawn of War 4? Let me know in the comment section below, because I'm really looking forward to reading what you all think. As always, I appreciate your support on my videos, and so if you did like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up, and also subscribe to the channel. More importantly, hit the notification bell so that you get a bit of a ding dong when I do upload my next video if you'd like to see it. As always, a really big thank you to the YouTube channel members. Take care and see you next time.